I don't know how long I want to stay on this today, but obviously we have to bring it up. The news of the day, and you've heard it probably ad nauseum since 8 o'clock this morning. Tom Brady confirms initial reports by Adam Schefter that he is indeed retiring after 7 Super Bowl wins, 10 Super Bowl appearances, and maybe the most interesting front to back career in NFL history. Tom Brady is hanging up the cleats, says that if he can't give 100% of his focus to his teammates, that's not fair to them. So he is, at least for now, hanging it up. I mean, are we putting aside a Brett Favre style comeback? I don't know. He's got a whole lot of other things going on, but I don't want to stay here for too long, Kay, but obviously we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Tom Brady retires from the NFL again after 7 Super Bowls. I don't know what the question. I mean, is the question that obviously everyone's asking, is he the greatest athlete of all time? I think it's pretty clear cut. He's the greatest NFL player of all time. He won 7 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
But now the question I keep hearing over and over again is he the greatest athlete of all time? I don't inherently care for this because I think you can get carried too much into the minutia of like, what does an athlete mean? Team sports versus just a solo sport, Olympic sports, all that kind of stuff. So like just the minutia of all that, you get just bogged down in the arguments more so than the answer. But your thoughts, as Tom Brady calls it quits. I mean, the dude's been in the league since you've been alive.
Yeah, greatest probably team player ever. I don't really want to do athlete. He probably is the
Better,
greatest team player.
better than Jordan.
I would put it like this. I think Jordan, he
See,
was a good
see
team.
how far,
No,
how long did this take
I
us?
think Jordan's the greatest all-time player in sports history. But as far as like a team like Tom Brady, he had to galvanize the troops a lot. Jordan could kind of like take games in his own matters in hands. Like, okay, give me the ball, I'll go get you 50. We'll win the game. Tom Brady still had to rely on his defense and his wide receivers to get open, even when they were depleted. And the thing I respected about Brady the most, he went out kind of on top this year. Yeah, he lost to Stafford, but you're down 27-3. You show that resilience to fight back. He led the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns, had one of the best seasons in NFL history. You go out on top like that, and you're the GOAT with 7 rings and 10 Super Bowl appearances, and you're known for losing one of the greatest Super Bowls ever offensively. Man, I mean, he's the GOAT, man. That's a great career. I was thinking about this morning. I'm like, man, I know I say Tom Brady's gotten carried by his defense a little bit, but that dude he's done put up some big time numbers too.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, he had the season where they went, what, 16? No, not 16 and 1, 18,
19,
18 and
18.
1.
Yeah,
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 18
18.
and 1 with Randy Moss there just throwing for all kinds of absurd numbers. But yeah, I mean, the first couple of Super Bowls, I think, like led by the Strouds and the Teddy Bruschi's and the Harrisons on that defense, right? And running the football a lot, the Bill Belichick coach defenses, I think you can say kind of helped Tom Brady to those first couple of championships. But then yeah, after that, they won 3 out of 4. And then there was kind of a little bit of a hiatus there.
A
And then they
decade.
came back. Yeah, then they came back and won 3 more. And then he moved on to Tampa Bay and won a Super Bowl in his first year there. It was the first time a team ever played in their home stadium and won a Super Bowl in their home stadium. Now it's going to happen 2 years in a row. Not
Yeah.
necessarily the win, but a team playing a Super Bowl in their home stadium. So I mean, all kinds of history there. And we talk about defenses not carrying him late in his career. Didn't he win a Super Bowl 10-7
Yeah, what was it?
or 10-3
13-3. Yeah.
or 13-3, something like
Yeah.
that? Yeah,
He didn't even score a
yeah,
touchdown. I think the only touchdown was scored as our own, Sonny Michelle. He's the only one that scored a touchdown that game.
right.
But I mean, I just look at it like, dang, 28-3, the Super Bowl against Seattle where he was like perfect against the Legion of Boom in that fourth quarter. And then the Eagles Super Bowl, even though he lost, he threw over like 500 something yards. His just offensive line couldn't
Sure.
block for nothing.
All right. So what is just top of your head? What is your favorite Tom Brady moment?
Dang, man. Favorite Tom Brady moment? Man, it might have to be when, even though they lost this year, it might have to be with Randy. Like, they transcended into something like, I never seen that in the NFL. Let's put it like that. That
Yeah.
was my first time since I've been alive where I'm like a quarterback and a wide receiver are that dominant and they just took over the league. And I remember them going like 18-0. I'm like, bro, they're undefeated in the NFL. This is the first time I've ever seen this. And pretty much the last time we've seen it, actually.
Yeah.
So I'll say that.
So I was in college at the time when they were playing who was it? Might have been Peyton Manning in one of the AFC Championship games. I looked at one of my friends and I said, "Don't bet against Tom Brady. Like you don't bet against Tom Brady." And so then they move on and they're playing Russell Wilson. This a couple years later, playing Russell Wilson, the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. Legion of Boom. They're going for 2 in a row at that point, right?
Mhm.
Playing them and down, and it looks like the Legion of Boom is gonna take that one too. And I look at my friend, I say, "Remember what I told you? You don't bet against Tom Brady." Then Malcolm Butler intercepts that one. Well, a couple years later, the Falcons are playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It's 28-3, as we all know. And I was at a party, and you know how I consume big games, Cam. I don't go out and watch them, but it was the first time the Falcons have been to the Super Bowl.
You got a party
since 1998. Like they were like, people, you have to come out with us. And I was like, all right, I'll go out with you guys. Falcons are up big at halftime. Robert Alford had just returned an interception before half for a touchdown. And everyone's excited, just walking around, talking, drinking, having a good time. I'm sitting on the couch with my arms folded, just kind of on my phone, scrolling a little bit. You're like, what's wrong? I'm like, number 12 still coming out in the second half? Number 12 still coming out in the second half? Then Julian Edelman levitates. Dante Hightower comes off the edge. The Falcons don't run the football, and then it goes to overtime. And as soon as that game goes to overtime, my friend who I have texted, I'll say Brady, that I have told multiple times, you don't bet against Tom Brady. What does he do? Sends me a text message. You don't bet against Tom Brady. And then the Patriots walk it off against the Falcons. So you got to appreciate the greatness, though.
Yeah, that was the worst night of my life as a sports fan. If there's any team.
If that's the worst night of your life, then you're having a pretty good life.
Yeah, I guess, but man, that one hurt. But I did respect him because he threw a pick six at the end of the half. I remember at halftime, I made that Robert Alford pick six my Twitter header. Like, no lie. I made it my Twitter header because I was so excited. I'm like, bro, we're up 28-3. And I seen the first touchdown at the end of that third quarter. I looked at my friend and said, they're about to do it again.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you got to respect the greatness. He's the greatest football player of all time.
Okay, so we're a pretty college football centric show, like regardless of what month it is, right? And obviously it's all about the NFL right now, the Tom Brady news, all of that. But my question to you is this: who is or was the Tom Brady of college football? Has there ever been a winner like that before? Because I'm gonna give you one name.
I can only think of one.
Because I feel like it has to be a quarterback.
Yeah.
Right. The only one that, and I went through all like the greatest list and all that, and to me, like the criteria had to be leader, polarizing, multiple time champion.
Okay.
Right. So like Matt Leinart won 2 national championships.
Yeah.
But like it's Matt Leinart. Like, I mean, he was a celebrity. He was in LA but he was playing with Lindell White and Reggie Bush and
Cushion. And
and them dudes out there. So it's like, Matt Leinert's Matt Leinart, but like I feel like it's Tebow.
Yeah, we agree. Then.
I feel like it's Tebow. And now, to be fair, he won 2 national championships, but he was the backup.
Yeah.
And one of them to Chris Leak. But just in terms of polarizing star status, excellent play, because to me, Tim Tebow is the greatest college quarterback of all time.
I actually called him, me and my friend, my longtime friend Chris, he watches the show. We call him the greatest football player ever in college football history. I actually we call him that maybe because that's, especially from what we've seen, he's the greatest one.
I don't know if he was the best one on his team.
Percy Harvin?
Yeah.
Percy Harvin was cold.
That guy.
Yeah. Percy Harvin was cold. Percy was that he was that dude. He was that dude. I wish he stayed healthy.
I've never seen a college football player that every time he touched the ball, like you kind of like just like put your head in your hands.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh God. And it was just shoestring tackle after shoestring tackle. The dude was like in basketball, they call it a walking bucket. Mm-hmm. The dude was a walking touchdown.
He was. I love what Tebow brought.
And Demps.
Oh yeah. Quinn Demps.
Yeah. Nasty.
Man. I mean, Tebow, he brought that leadership. Jeffrey Demps, that's his name?
I feel like Quentin Demps played DB.
I'm probably wrong. I'm thinking probably DB Quentin.
That's why I just said Demps.
Yeah, but Tebow, he brought that leadership and he kind of just brought that ferocity to the game of college football that I hadn't seen before that. He was just intense. And even though he played for those Gators, you had to respect Tim Tebow. You just loved it. I remember when him and Eric Berry went head to head and had that collision. They both got up and was like,
Yeah.
Let's play some football. Like, that's football right there. Like, I'll never forget that. They go head to head. Here, Eric Berry, hard hitting safety, Tim
That was like
Tebow.
the pinnacle of, I'm not gonna say SEC success, but just like SEC athlete on athlete, where like the rest of the country was like, we don't have anything
Oh
like
yeah,
this.
yeah. Mutual respect. Like
Yeah,
we don't have mutants
yeah,
out here like that. Because Eric Berry, no doubt, was a mutant.
yeah. I'm just trying to think of anyone else, like Archie Griffin, maybe
Mhm.
1, 2 Heisman's, but like the national championship success wasn't there. Like I'm thinking polarizing and then on field success. Like I've seen a lot of people say Johnny Manziel, and I'm like,
I'm a
and
Johnny football
and
fan
in
too.
terms of like polarizing and like just like being a superstar, yes, but
He a
as
win guy.
a winner,
Yeah, he a
no.
winner.
May Could we say Trevor Lawrence? Maybe
I would say Deshaun Watson before Trevor Lawrence. I
they
would
both won
actually
the
go.
same amount and
Yeah.
went to the same amount. But like Trevor Lawrence, I'm talking like going undefeated multiple times
That's
inside his conference, just
I
dominating, putting up records.
I love Deshaun Watson, man, when he was at Clemson. I felt like he was obviously the best leader in college football, but man, that's a tough question. That'll be some more research, but that's a tough question. The only answer I did have was Tebow, though. I think Tebow's
I think
above
it's
him.
Tebow. I think usually when it's like, if you hear hoofs, don't think zebra,
Mhm.
think horse. Like it's Tim
Tebow.
Tebow, right? So I don't know. Well, look, I'll bring it up to BJ. I'll let him put his analytical mind up to it. He'll probably come up with a Sun Belt player. I don't know. But we do have some other college football news to get to. The Caleb Williams news has finally broke. Oklahoma has lost 2 quarterbacks now in the same cycle to USC, just on different sides of the country. Spencer Rattler goes to South Carolina. Now Caleb Williams is following Lincoln Riley to Southern
They
Cal.
they had the best of both. They had them. They had both of them.
Yeah, but now they're both gone. Just split them to both coasts. We'll break down what the Caleb Williams news means next and some other college football news as well. This is Second Down right here on ESPN Radio. Cam, I have an apology to make. Tim Tebow is not the Tom Brady of college football.
Who is?
Tommy Frazier, quarterback for the Nebraska Cornhuskers from 1992 to 1995.
Well, he must have won every year. Huh?
3-time champion, led him to back-to-back championships.
I don't know anything about old Tommy Frazier. So.
Well, that's because he played before you were born.
Yeah. I don't know anything. I heard them Cornhuskers back then. You know, they were running things back in the 90s. But, I mean, they're a laughing stock kind of right now. But I heard stories about them. I will say that. I hear it from the old heads when I go in the barbershop. Yeah, them Cornhuskers back then, man, they was legit.
Yeah, 3-time bowl MVP, 3-time conference champion, and 2-time national champion, and he did that back-to-back. Back-to-back.
I mean, hey.
94 and 95.
Does he have a Heisman?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's hard to argue that, man.
Take that back. Heisman Trophy runner-up.
It's hard to argue that. I'm still going to go with old Timothy Tebow.
Yeah.
Still going to go with Tim Tebow.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Gotta stick with your first answer. Your first answer is your best answer. So I'm gonna stick with my guns. I'm gonna go Tim Tebow.
No, I'm gonna change my answer. I gotta apologize to anyone born prior to 1995.
Yeah,
that includes me. Like I said, I let us down. That's on me. All right, so Kayla Williams transfers to USC from Oklahoma. First thing I find funny about this is this seemed like the logical choice the entire time. But damn, did he have a bunch of fan bases like kind of salivating.
Wisconsin, Georgia,
LSU, UCLA, like everyone was just like, oh man, is it happening? Is it happening?
Yeah.
Like, how many graphic artists out there did photos of Caleb Williams in their team's uniforms?
I think we said yesterday. I thought he was a lock-in to go to Wisconsin.
Well, I mean, everybody thought he was. He was apparently on campus.
Man, I mean, then he flipped the script. He's like, Madison. Southern Cal.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Well, I mean, I guess it just depends on, are you looking for that NIL money while you're in?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you looking for that, I want somebody to take me to the next level?
That's true.
Now, I guess you could say, because maybe not USC, but Lincoln Riley has a bunch of quarterbacks in the NFL right now. 3 starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now? Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, and I don't know why his name's slipping my mind right now, but it is. Anyway.
Jalen Hurts.
Thank you. I could see the uniforms. I don't know why I could slip in my mind, but USC not necessarily a great track record since Mark Sanchez, whereas one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for the last 10 years came out of Wisconsin and Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And like, listen, nobody puts out third string quarterbacks like Wisconsin.
Hey, at least get him to the NFL, man. You get into the NFL. That's all that matters.
You get those paychecks. But I will say this. I think for the last few years, Wisconsin's been a quarterback away.
Yeah, they had a top 5 defense this year.
For the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And then you watch them on offense, you're like, oh my God, how much better could this defense be if the offense wasn't consistently going 3 and out?
And yeah. I think him going to USC is huge though. And I'll say it, but I think it has potential for a Rose Bowl this year.
I think USC has a potential just because of all the change inside the Pac-12. I mean, the one consistent force had really been Oregon, and then Utah kind of put a stop to that. Like, is Utah the favorite in the Pac-12 next year? I think there's a chance, and it's an outside one, but I don't think it's as crazy as maybe thinking about it 2 or 3 months ago. There's a chance USC makes the college football playoff next year.
Yeah, it's a high chance because the Pac-12 is so weak, and Oregon's losing so many defensive players. Utah's losing Devin Lloyd at middle linebacker. I mean, it's wide open in the Pac-12 as it is.
You know who Utah's playing at week 1 next year?
Who?
At Florida.
See, yeah, that could be
a rough start to the Billy Napier era down in Florida.
But that could also be a great start too. He gets a win like that against Utah, who was just in the Rose Bowl and a play away from winning the Rose Bowl. How big is that for the Florida fan base off rip? Like, that's huge. But I think Caleb Williams going to USC, they have potential. I predict them going 10-2. I haven't looked at the schedule, but
how are you going to predict them going 10-2 if you haven't looked at the schedule?
Lincoln Riley's due to lose a game, and then USC's at least this first year. I think 10
that
and
is
2.
the analytical breakdown that we're looking for here.
Uh, but Lincoln Riley, he's known to drop one every year.
I think most coaches are known to drop a few every year.
Yeah, but he drops the weird ones, like
I
the
mean, I think Kirby
really
Smart,
weird
for the
ones.
most part, is known for dropping one a year.
Yeah. I mean, that's a
I
little.
think about it, Jake Fromm literally went 33-3 as Georgia's starting quarterback. He went 11-1 3 years in a row in the regular season. It's the definition of dropping one.
That's true, but
Like they always lay an egg.
They
SEC
do.
championship this year. Egg
But that's against Bama though.
but you didn't lay an egg?
Lincoln Riley lose to like K-State. You'd be like, Lincoln.
Well, I mean,
At home.
No, that's just like an Oklahoma tradition.
Yeah. At home losing to K-State, and you just I don't know, but hopefully in the Pac-12 things change because I like Lincoln Riley, and they're gonna do big things though. I think they'll make it to the Rose Bowl, worst case scenario this year.
Damn, the Rose Bowl is your worst case. Well, will the Rose Bowl be a semifinal?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I tweeted that earlier. I'm like, if that's a semifinal, then obviously you're not.
No,
in the
I don't
Rose
think it will
Bowl.
be because it was 2 years ago when they played the Rose Bowl in Dallas.
They did play that. That's
Well, that was Alabama, Notre Dame, when Najee jumping over our Notre Dame players.
yeah, just hurdling people, having fun.
That's pretty much on par for what Najee usually does there. But again, Kayla Williams transferring to USC, finally putting that one to bed. Now, that the biggest transfer of like the biggest piece is off the board. Now, in terms of that, you've had Jackson Dart. Speaking of USC, he transferred from USC to Ole Miss. So Ole Miss has their Matt Corral replacement. They've got some good running backs coming into Ole Miss as well. So Ole Miss could be a whole lot of fun to watch next year. And then you have what's going on down at Auburn, where Brian Harsin, we didn't get a chance to talk about this yesterday. Brian Harsin has now lost, whether through firing or quitting, 3 coordinators in one offseason, and his first real offseason.
It's looking rough down there in Auburn. I think who's the quarterback? Zach Calzada that's coming down there from Texas A&M.
Yep.
It's looking real rough. I don't
know
if that's the guy you
from Oregon as well.
I don't know if those are the guys you want for the future.
Well, you got old Holden Garner from Benedictine out there.
Yeah.
He's already on campus.
That's who you like for the future. A true freshman to come in there and you start from scratch. But it's looking a little.
Well, if you missed the news yesterday, the Auburn Tigers had hired Austin Davis, the quarterback's coach from the Seattle Seahawks, as their new offensive coordinator. And dude didn't even make it 6 weeks. Hadn't been on campus for the past week or so, and then informed Brian Harsin that he was out. So just to recap, you lost 5 games in a row, including a bowl game, to finish the season. I mean, obviously the heartbreaker in the Iron Bowl, but you lose 5 games in a row. You lose your namesake generational starting quarterback in Bo Nix. Like Nix is like a holy word in Auburn, right?
Yeah,
he leaves you to go to Oregon. You fire Mike Bobo. Derek Mason, again, say it out loud, defensive coordinator at Auburn, moves over to Oklahoma State to take the same job. People don't leave Auburn for the same job at Oklahoma State.
Nah, they don't.
Right? And so you bring in Austin Davis from the Seahawks, and he takes a look around, and he goes, no, thank you. I need some more job security than this. And he's out now.
Harsin must be, I don't want to say, he must be rubbing people the wrong way when they step on campus because there's no way. Auburn is Auburn. That's a prestigious university. Like we're talking about Cam Newton, Cadillac Williams, those type of dudes. Like it's a prestigious university. If you can't get guys to just stay there, then something's going on in that campus.
I mean, they're a decade removed from winning a national championship, like 8 years removed from going to another one.
Yeah.
Played in the SEC championship not too long ago. They'll get Alabama once every 3 or 4 years.
It's beat them in the Iron Bowl a couple of years ago. What is it, 3 years ago now?
Yeah.
You're not too far removed from being a competitive team. They were like, I want to say 10-2 that year when they won the Iron Bowl. I know they lost to Georgia the week before, but I mean, you beat Alabama.
It's weird to me though because you're just looking around the SEC now, and there's the power dynamic where it's Alabama and Georgia right now, and I don't think anybody's really close to them on either side of that conference. I know we've seen a lot of predictions because the games have been released, but not like the date schedule for the SEC. The ACCs came out yesterday, but most people are predicting Georgia goes 12-0, Alabama goes 12-0 next year. Georgia has a pretty light schedule next year. The SEC schedule is favorable, and then once you get past Oregon, if you get past Oregon, which Georgia will probably be heavily favored in that one, the schedule opens up really nicely for Georgia next year. So you have Alabama, Georgia. They're just kind of a step above everybody in their divisions right now. SEC East, I think, is kind of mending and kind of healing right now. You got Spencer Rattler and Shane Beamer, and like there's just a whole lot of positive injury coming out of South Carolina. Same thing with Josh Heupel and Hendon Hooker at Tennessee. Florida got a new coach in there. Hopefully this one works out this time, right? So there's some mending going on in the SEC East, but it's a positive vibe. Whereas the SEC West is as competitive as it always is, right? Texas A&M is just signing number one overall recruiting classes. You have Mike Leach at Mississippi State. Nobody wants to play that team, right? LSU just brought in the winningest coach currently in college football in Brian Kelly. So it's a murderer's row out there. And then you look at Auburn and you're like,
they might be the worst team
in the SEC West.
Never thought
like nobody's worse than Vanderbilt. We can go ahead and put that out there. You'll never be. You don't have to worry about being in the basement in the SEC.
Yeah,
because Vanderbilt's always there, like, hey, we got you. You're never going to hit rock bottom. But even though Tennessee got close a few years back, but Auburn's doing their damnedest to get down there.
I never thought I would be sitting here saying Auburn's the worst team in the SEC West. Like Arkansas
is good.
Really good. Ole Miss, really good. Mississippi State with Will Rogers. I love Will Rogers.
Yeah, he might be the most prolific quarterback in the SEC next year.
Yeah, he puts up like just video game numbers. I'm just shocked, man, to see where Auburn was when they first got Bo, and you were competing and we're like, okay, Bo is going to take them to, they're going to have one of those Auburn years when they might make the playoffs or they compete in the SEC championship, and it just never really got there. They slowly declined.
Well, yeah, no, they were one of the media darlings at SEC Media Days last year because you had Brian Harsin coming in, who was a offensive guy from Boise State. You brought in Mike Bobo, and then you brought in Derek Mason. So it's like, okay, you don't really have a ton of familiarity inside the SEC. Bring in these two guys; they'll help you out with that. Oh, and by the way, you have Tank Bigsby, who just came off an unbelievable freshman season. He can be your bell cow back. Tank Bigsby didn't get a whole lot of carries this year. Bo Nix regressed under supposedly a quarterback guru in Brian Harsin. And like I said, you've gone through 3 coordinators now in one offseason.
Is Tank still there at Auburn?
Yeah, there was some rumors that he was moving on, but they got him to stay, which that might have been it for Harsin if he left.
Yeah, man. Man, I mean, because it's too late for him to transfer now.
But if you're Auburn, are you worried that you get into the Florida State mode?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Where you hire and fire.
Absolutely.
Hire and immediately on the hot seat.
You're hiring and firing people, but then also you're losing like players, like big time players. Bo Nix, you almost lost Tank Bigsby, who was your best player. He's better than Bo Nix.
Yeah.
He was your best player. They better tread lightly, man.
It is a tough job to sell to somebody, not with the paychecks, because Auburn can break you off about as good as anybody. But when you sit down and you say, all right, our goal every year is to be competing to win the SEC West, get to the SEC championships, get to a New Year's Six Bowl, win some national championships. Like be competing for a national, realistically for Auburn, be competing for a national championship once every 3-4 years, right? Like every recruiting cycle that comes through, like let's be competing for a national championship once every 3 to 4 years. I think that's realistic for Auburn, right? But to start with, you're going to play Alabama, LSU, and Georgia every year. Before we schedule any like marquee out of conference games, like sending you up to Happy Valley to play Penn State, before we do any of that, you're going to play Alabama, Georgia, and LSU every year.
And now to a degree, Ole Miss, Texas A&M,
yep,
Arkansas, that's up 5-6 ranked teams.
Yep,
every year, and we're talking about what? All of them were top 10 this year at some point outside of LSU. All of them were top 10. Looking a little tough for Auburn, man.
But for the people who are like, oh, come on, everybody's got to play tough teams. Look at Kirby Smart's job. Look at Kirby Smart's job. Yeah. They said Georgia's schedule. They say you have to play Florida and Auburn every year.
Yep.
How different is Florida Auburn than Alabama, LSU, and Georgia? Like I know you can't play yourself, but
yeah, that's tough.
That's different.
That's like Georgia playing Alabama and it's another marquee team like Ohio State every year.
To me, it's like Mark Richt taking over at Georgia in the early 2000s when Florida was dominant and Tennessee was not too far removed from a national championship. Is before you even start thinking about anything else, you have to get through the murderer's row of 2 of the best top 8 teams in the country every single year.
And I know PJ hates us saying this, but there's nothing like the SEC. It's nothing like it. It's every week. It's just tough and competitive. Even if you're in the SEC East and you're Georgia, it's still some really nice
Why
football
did you wait
out
until
there.
PJ wasn't on the show to say that?
No, because we're on
You
it today.
scared?
If PJ wants to get on the show, I'll call him in. PJ. No, I'll call him in. We'll talk about it. But I mean, it's nothing like the SEC though,
Well,
man. I've always
it's
said
just
that.
3-4 weeks ago. I was thinking this we might go through a whole year and nobody get fired in the SEC. Like unless some scandal pops up, there's like Stoops ain't going anywhere. They're not going to fire Clark Lee. I think he's on like some sort of like 10-year deal. Like they get it. It's Vanderbilt, right? Shane Beamer ain't getting fired.
Maybe Harsin.
So
He might be the
when
only
I
one.
kind of ranked it out in terms of on the hot seat in the SEC, it's Harsin, and this was before Austin Davis left. It was Harsin, Jimbo, because after you sign the number one recruiting class, after you bring in some transfer quarterbacks, and you have these just expectations after beating Alabama last year, if you have another 8-4, 7-5 season, they're going to start questioning why they pay you so much.
I think the only game he's allowed to lose this year is Bama because you just beat him last year.
Yeah,
I think that's the only game he's allowed to lose.
Like I think anything less than 10 wins for Texas A&M next year is a disappointment. So I can see Jimbo not getting fired, but being on the hot seat after next year. And then I put Mike Leach in there because I think with his personality, and we've seen it at a lot of different stops, it can kind of be volatile where it's if you're chirpy and making pirate puns and saying some kind of off-color stuff, but you're winning 9 games and you're having fun doing it, all right, fine. But if you're doing all that same stuff and you're going 5-7, people kind of get sick of it. So I could see Leach there. So I had him third, but like I don't have anybody in the East on the hot seat. I mean, Kirby Smart has submitted himself a job for life if he wants it at Georgia, and then everybody else is relatively new in the East outside of Stoops. So
I think Shane Beamer and them gonna have a cool season, like a really
they might have the most lit 7-win season.
I think they could squeeze out 8. I haven't looked at the schedules, of course. I gotta do that due diligence, but they could squeeze out 8. I'll try to give them the bit. I like Spencer Rattler. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. So I'll say they could squeeze out 8. But Jimbo, in my opinion, he has to win 11 games in the regular season. Your only loss could be Alabama. You have to beat everybody else. You got that number 1 recruiting class, these quarterbacks, the running backs, your team's coming back. There's no more excuses, man. No more.
I'm curious to see, and somebody probably has it pretty handy, what Nick Saban's record is. Like playing somebody the year after he lost to him.
He never loses. Yeah. He always blows them out. Remember Ohio State?
Yeah, I am very concerned.
In the national championship? Yeah.
I am very concerned about that matchup for Texas A&M next year. That might get rough, and that one's in Tuscaloosa. So I don't know, man. I think it's interesting. And then it doesn't seem, and this could change any day, it doesn't seem like Texas and Oklahoma are going to be coming in this year. But also, I think some of the luster of that has kind of fallen off. Now, when they announced that they were joining the SEC, everybody obviously looks at football, but I said they don't just do this for football. I mean, when you look at the SEC and in terms of like some of the money-making sports, like with baseball, and just like the name recognition those programs bring inside your conference, that's the reason you bring them in there. But obviously, college football is the dominant sport inside of college athletics. That has kind of lost some of the luster. You got Steve Sarkisian coming off of not making a bowl game last year with Texas, and
losing to Kansas.
Now it's different. I think Texas kind of has some energy coming into this year because they got Quinn Ewers, who did like kind of a 1-year experiment. Like, remember, if you don't remember Quinn Ewers, he left his senior year of high school, just didn't play, signed an NIL deal, and enrolled early at Ohio State, even though Ohio State had like 3 5-star freshmen in front of him, including CJ Stroud, who ain't going anywhere. So Quinn Ewers went up there, made his millions. I don't know what his bank account looks like, but he had a big NIL deal, and now it's coming back down. At Texas, they got Jaleel Billingsley, the Alabama tight end. He's transferred in there. So there's some energy around Texas, but it ain't 2010 Texas, right? And then Oklahoma, when you hear that again, you're having dreams of Baker Mayfield playing in the SEC games, or Kyler Murray, right, playing in these SEC games.
Did they play the first game of the season?
Isn't Dylan Gabriel
at Oklahoma?
Yeah. But it's no, I'm saying, like, and Dylan Gabriel's there right now, and now it's Brent Venables as their head coach. So it's just,
yeah,
I think some of it's lost some of the luster that people were like, oh my God, this is just it. It's just, they are centralizing power inside of college athletics.
No, I agree. Like, I think Quentin Ewers going to Texas is really cool.
Like, rank them inside it. So say I throw Texas in the East and Oklahoma in the West.
Woo! Oklahoma might be second to last. or kind of like in the middle of the pack. I don't think Oklahoma's better than Arkansas. I really don't. I don't think they're better than Ole Miss, Texas A&M, or Bama.
I'd say Texas would probably be
Third, fourth.
third or fourth
Yeah.
in the East.
I don't know if they're I don't think they're better than Kentucky. I gotta see what Kentucky has coming back.
I think Tennessee's gonna be really good next year.
Absolutely. I think so too.
If
Remember,
nothing
we
else, they're
talked
gonna
about
put
it.
up if they can just like kind of breathe on somebody on defense, they'll be better next year.
I can see 9 wins.
Yeah, they could be really good next year.
But doesn't Texas play Alabama the first game of the season?
Yeah.
Woo,
I don't know if it's first game. I think it's second week.
that's a tough start to
I think it's week 2.
Quentin Ewers.
That
Kind of sucks.
a tough start for anybody.
Yeah, for anybody, but
Yeah.
that really sucks.
Oh yeah, I don't know why as an athletic director you would ever accept playing Alabama and out of conference.
I don't understand it. I'm like, okay, listen, Bama, I appreciate the offer, but let us get back on board first. Let us get some of them 5 stars you got, and then we might be able to run it back. But, I mean, interesting year of college football. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, you talk about rough schedules. I know we've been talking about schedules a lot on today's show. The ACC announced theirs, and Georgia Tech. We got to talk. Whoever is doing your scheduling in terms of out of conference. Now I know you have to play Georgia every single year, but whoever's like sitting there lobbying for your schedules, they ain't doing their job very well. Georgia Tech opens the season with Clemson. Then they gotta pay them for a win game. Then they have Ole Miss, and then they're at UCF.
Why do they keep doing this to themselves? So you want to start off 1-3?
No, and then they're at Pitt.
1-4.
Yeah, and then they have Duke, which maybe a win. Then you have Virginia at Florida State, at Virginia Tech, home against Miami, and then here's how you finish the season: at Florida State, at Virginia Tech, home against Miami, at North Carolina, at Georgia.
I may have heard. I don't like to say it.
They might win one game next year.
That's what I was about to say. I don't know if they could beat Duke. I really don't. If they go 1-11,
And Jeff Collins can do like a really good job coaching next year, and they could win 2 games.
yeah, oh yeah, he could coach his butt off. They might go 3-9 at best, but they're not getting more than 3 wins with that schedule, unless the doors blow up and everybody becomes fluky and they're not who we thought they were. But that's a tough schedule, and they gotta go on the road too. They're at Ole Miss.
The thing is, do you think? No, they're home against Ole Miss. They play Clemson to start the season on September 5th in Mercedes-Benz.
So they're gonna get whooped at home,
right? And then, like I said, they gotta buy a win game, and then they have Ole Miss at home, and they're at UCF and at Pitt. I don't know if Jeff Collins survives that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I hate to call somebody's job.
But if they start 1-4 and they're getting decimated.
Yeah. Now if it's 1-4, you're kind of competitive, where all these games are like 3-point losses, then there's something you can argue about. But if you're losing to Clemson like 56-14 and you're losing to Ole Miss like 38-7, there's no point.
It's gonna be rough. Yeah. All right, we gotta take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk some more college football next, right here on Second Down. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. Kay, I was going to ask you, can you remember a bigger transfer in terms of potential like left and like what they did beforehand, right? Like people always go back with the perspective of hindsight, right? Where you say, wow, Joe Burrow, that's like one of the most impactful transfers of all time. Cam Newton, one of the most impactful transfers of all time. But like with the base knowledge that somebody was this good and then they transferred.
Man, maybe Russell Wilson. That's the only one.
That's like that was one of the ones that came to mind for me. Just a grad transfer, moving on, trying to win.
Yeah, I can't think of nobody off the top of my head. Probably, yeah, I would go Russell Wilson.
Because now, just in this offseason, it's just the way the transfer portal works now is Alabama's done a majority of the work. You
Mhm.
have an All American, Jahmyr Gibbs, who's leaving his school to go play for Alabama. You have an All American type corner in Eli Ricks,
Mhm.
who is leaving his school to go play for Alabama. And now you have Kayla Williams, who a lot of people considered to be top 2, 3 quarterback in college football, either him or Bryce Young,
Yeah,
right?
CJ Stroud's up there for
And
sure.
he's not playing for somebody for 3 years and then grad transferring. He played like half a season. I don't know if that's fair, like 9 games, right? And now he's transferring. I don't know that we've ever seen anything like this before.
No,
And like maybe if like somebody got in trouble and then they had to transfer somewhere, maybe. But in terms of huge production as a freshman, has the world in front of him going forward in his college football career and decides to leave.
no. Like I know people bring up like Jameson Williams. He transferred from Ohio State. We didn't know. I didn't know nothing about Jameson Williams at Ohio State before he got to Bama. I'm pretty sure he was a decent wide receiver, but I knew absolutely nothing about him. But yes, I would probably go Caleb Williams 1, Russell Wilson 2. And the only reason why I say Russell Wilson 2, he was at NC State for a good minute before he transferred to
You know
Wisconsin.
what I'll say? And this, it's usually the ones right in front of your face that you don't think about. Justin Fields.
No, I mean, I was gonna say Justin Fields, but he didn't play much at
Right.
Georgia. Like he was an unknown.
It was a relative unknown. And
Yeah.
like maybe Kyler Murray, because we saw some stuff at Texas A&M when
Yeah.
he transferred, but never really how
Mhm.
great he was going to be. So
Oh, Jalen Hurts. Shoot. There we go.
but see, Jalen Hurts,
But he played a long time
I
at
view
Bama
Jalen Hurts
too.
more of a Russell Wilson.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Where
what I was about to say,
he
yeah.
played at one school for a while and then was like, okay, I
Mhm.
have one more year to prove it to the NFL guys. I'm going to go somewhere else. So that's what I looked at there. So I don't know that we have ever seen anything like that before. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up Second Down right here on ESPN Radio.
All right.
I was going to talk about the Washington football team and the fact that their name is being announced tomorrow, but now I got to talk about, was that the best end to any Marvel movie? The end of the first Iron Man?
Iron Man's my favorite Marvel character outside of Wolverine.
Where he hits it with where he just hits it with the I am Iron Man.
Yeah.
Is that the best? Is that the best end to any Marvel movie?
Yeah. Yeah. That was cool.
I always
That
love
cool.
I always love the cut to black into the movies.
I do love the cut to black, but man, Iron Man's the coolest Marvel character. Coolest Avenger. I ain't gonna say Marvel character. I'm still a Wolverine guy to the day I die, man.
That's fair.
Yeah. Still Wolverine.
But no, the reports are out there that the Washington football team, their name being announced tomorrow, is going to be the Washington Commanders. Yeah, which just sounds XFL as hell. Meh is the overwhelming. I'd say if anything, just stay as the Washington football team. You kind of sound like an English Premier League club, which I think is fine. You don't have to have a mascot. Just be the Washington football team. But the Washington Commanders, they're just trying to, it's a money grab. They want you to spend some more money there. Coming up here on 3 and Out, got Kelly Quinlan from Jackets Online. Going to talk about just how brutal that poor Jeff Collins' schedule is in 2022. That's coming up at 3:30. Aaron Fitt from D1Baseball.com going to join the guys coming up at 4:20. 247 national writer Brad Crawford is going to hop on there at the 5 o'clock hour. He has Georgia and Alabama going 12-0 in 2022. We'll break it all down coming up on 3 and Out. If you missed any portion of our show, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or on ESPNCoastal.com.